On the night my city wife came to our village, the moon was red like fresh palm oil, and the dogs refused to bark. Old people say that when the moon turns red and the wind carries dust from far places, something unusual is walking toward you. That night, the Harmattan wind blew softly across our fields, touching the dry corn leaves and whispering secrets into the ears of the baobab trees. I did not know that the secret was about me. My name is Obinna. I was born in Umuagu, a small village surrounded by thick forest and wide farms. In Umuagu, everybody knows your name, your father's name, and even the name of the goat you lost when you were 10 years old. Life was simple. We woke up with the crowing of the cock. We farmed under the hot sun. We sat under the udola tree in the evening and listened to stories from the elders. I was a farmer like my father. I believed that the soil was a living thing. My father used to say, the land is a mother. If you respect her, she will feed you. So I respected the land. I did not think about the city. The city was a faraway place where buildings touched the sky and people forgot the sound of crickets at night. But one dry season, everything changed. It started when my uncle from Lagos came home for the New Yam festival. He arrived in a big shining car that made children run after him, shouting and laughing. He wore sunglasses even when the sun was going down. He smelled of perfume instead of sweat and palm wine. That evening, as we ate roasted yam and spicy pepper sauce, he said to me, Obinna, you are strong and hardworking. Come to Lagos. There is more money there than in these farms. I laughed. Uncle, money does not grow like cassava. It needs soil. He shook his head. In Lagos, money grows on roads. The elders laughed at his words, but the seed of the city had already fallen into my heart. 2 months later, after much thinking and prayer at the small shrine near the Iroko tree, I followed my uncle to Lagos. The city was louder than thunder. Cars moved like angry ants. People did not greet each other on the road. Everybody was running. Running to buses. Running to offices. Running from something I could not see. At first, I felt lost. I missed the smell of wet earth after rain. I missed the sound of my mother pounding fufu in the morning. But slowly, I learned the ways of the city. I worked at my uncle's spare parts shop. I carried heavy engine blocks. I learned to shout prices over the noise of traffic. That was where I met her. Her name was Adaeze. The first time I saw her, she was arguing with a bus conductor who tried to cheat her. She stood straight, her head high, her voice clear like the ringing of a bell. You think because I am a woman, I cannot count, she said. The conductor laughed nervously and gave her back her change. I watched her from inside the shop. She wore simple clothes, but she carried herself like a queen. Her eyes were sharp, but when she smiled at a small child beside her, they became soft like early morning light. Later that day, she came into our shop to buy a small car part for her boss. Good afternoon, she said. Good afternoon, I replied, wiping my hands on a rag. Her voice was calm now. Different from the strong voice she used outside. As I searched for the part, she looked at me carefully. You are not from here, she said. I was surprised. How did you know? You greet properly, she said with a small smile. City boys do not greet like that. I laughed. I am from Umuagu village. Village boy, she teased gently. So what are you doing in this noisy place? Looking for money that grows on roads, I said. She laughed loudly, and her laughter felt like fresh rain on dry land. From that day, she began to stop by the shop sometimes. We talked about many things. She told me she worked as a secretary in a big office. She lived in a small apartment with her cousin. She loved books and music. She had never planted a seed in her life. One evening, as the sun set behind tall buildings, she asked me, Obinna, do you ever miss your village? Every day, I said. In my village, the night is dark and peaceful. Here, even at midnight, the city refuses to sleep. She was quiet for a moment. I have never seen a real village, she said softly. Only in movies. You should come one day, I said without thinking. She looked at me in a way that made my heart beat faster. Maybe I will. Months passed like fast-moving clouds. Our friendship grew. We ate roasted corn by the roadside. We shared stories of our childhood. She told me how her parents died when she was young and how she struggled to finish school. I told her about my mother's cooking and the wrestling matches during festivals. One day, under a small mango tree near her apartment, I asked her to marry me. The wind was quiet. The city noise seemed far away. Adaeze, I said, my voice shaking like a leaf. I do not have much. Only my hands and my heart. But I want to build a life with you. She looked at me for a long time. I feared she would laugh. Instead, she said, "Village boy, do you know what you are asking? I am a city woman. I like electricity and running water. I like shoes that are not covered in dust. I will try to give you what I can," I said. "But I cannot promise that village life will be like Lagos." She smiled slowly. "Maybe I am tired of Lagos." We married in a small church in the city. My uncle stood as my witness. Her cousin stood beside her. It was simple, but my heart was full. After the wedding, I told her my plan. "I want us to move back to Umuagu," I said. "I want to farm. I want our children to grow where the air is clean." She was silent. "You promise not to laugh," she said finally. "I am not laughing." She looked out of the window at the busy street below. Cars were honking. Traders were shouting. "Take me to your village," she said at last. "Let me see this place that lives in your stories." And so, on that night of the red moon and the silent dogs, my city wife stepped into Umuagu for the first time, her city shoes touching our dusty earth. The elders watched from their compounds. The children whispered. The wind carried her perfume across the village square. And somewhere in the dark forest beyond the farms, something old and unseen opened its eyes. I did not know then that bringing a city woman into a village guarded by ancient spirits would awaken a story older than my grandfather's grandfather. But the Harmattan wind knew. And it was only the beginning. The morning after my city wife arrived in Umuagu, the village woke up earlier than usual. Women who normally swept their compounds slowly now swept faster, peeping over their low fences. Children who were sent to fetch water from the stream took the longest path so they could pass in front of my father's house and look at her. My wife, Adaeze, stepped outside just as the sun began to rise. The Harmattan dust had settled lightly on the ground like white powder. She wore a simple wrapper my mother gave her, but she still tied it like a city woman. The village women noticed. "She walks like she is still on Third Road," one of them whispered. I pretended not to hear. My mother came out with a calabash of warm water for her. "My daughter," my mother said gently, "in this village, we greet the morning before it greets us." Adaeze quickly bent her knees in greeting. "Good morning, Mama." My mother smiled. She liked respect more than gold. But not everyone smiled. The oldest man in Umuagu, Papa Nedi, sat under the Iroko tree in the village square, watching. His beard was white like cotton. People said he knew stories that were not told to children. When I went to greet him, he held my wrist tightly. "You brought her," he said quietly. "Yes, Papa. The wind changed last night." "It is only Harmattan," I replied. He looked toward the forest beyond the farms. "Not every wind is ordinary." His words stayed in my heart like a small stone inside a shoe. That afternoon, Adaeze followed me to the farm. She covered her head with a scarf to block the sun. After walking for some time, she stopped. "Obinna," she said, breathing heavily, "how far is this farm?" "We are almost there." "You said that 10 minutes ago." I laughed. In the village, distance is measured by strength. When we reached the farm, she looked around at the wide land, the tall palm trees, and the thick forest at the edge. "It is beautiful," she admitted. I felt proud. I handed her a small hoe. "Let me teach you how to plant yam." She tried. The first time she struck the ground, the hoe bounced back. The soil was harder than she expected. This ground is stubborn, she complained. It is not stubborn, I said. It is testing you. She looked at me seriously. In the city, the ground does not test anybody. We work on it. That is all. I smiled. Here, the ground must accept you. As she bent again to dig, a strange thing happened. From the forest, a sudden cold wind blew. Not like Harmattan. This one was colder, sharper. It moved quickly through the palm leaves, making a sound like whispering voices. Adaeze stopped. Did you hear that? She asked. Hear what? It sounded like someone calling. I listened. I heard only the wind. It is nothing, I said. The forest likes to talk. She shook her head slowly. It called my name. I laughed lightly. The forest does not know your name. But as we walked back home that evening, I noticed something. The dogs that usually run freely near the forest refused to go close to it. They stood at a distance, growling softly. You. That night, Adaeze could not sleep. I woke up and found her sitting upright on the mat. What is it? I asked. I heard someone outside, she whispered. I listened carefully. The night was quiet except for crickets. You are not used to village sounds, I said gently. Even lizards can sound like thieves. She lay down again, but I could feel her body was tense. 3 days passed. The village slowly accepted her. She learned how to fetch water without spilling it. She learned how to light firewood without coughing too much. She even laughed with the other women at the stream. But the forest did not forget her. On the 4th day, something happened that made the elders gather. A small boy named Chike went missing. He had followed his mother to the farm but wandered too close to the forest while chasing a grasshopper. When his mother called him, there was no answer. The village searched everywhere. They called his name. They beat drums. They checked near the stream. Nothing. As the sun began to set, fear spread like fire in dry grass. Papa Nedi stood in the square and spoke. This forest has not taken anyone in many years, he said. Not since the old agreement. People murmured. What agreement? Adaeze whispered to me. I felt uneasy. Long ago, before I was born, the elders made peace with the spirits of the forest. They said the forest must not harm our children, and we will not enter its deepest part. She looked at the dark trees in the distance. Spirits. Obinna, you are educated. Do you believe that? Before I could answer, a scream came from the direction of the forest. It was a child's voice. Everyone ran. We followed the sound to the edge of the trees. There, standing alone, was little Chike. He looked confused but unharmed. His mother rushed and carried him tightly. Where did you go? She cried. Chike pointed into the forest. Auntie called me, he said. The crowd became silent. What auntie? Someone asked. He looked around slowly. The fine auntie that came with Harmattan wind. My heart stopped. Slowly, many eyes turned toward Adaeze. She stepped back, shaking her head. I did not leave the house today, she said. It was true. She had been with my mother all afternoon. But fear does not listen to truth. Papa Nedi raised his hand. Silence, he commanded. He walked toward Chike and knelt down. What did this auntie look like? Chike frowned. She looked like her, he said, pointing again at Adaeze. But her eyes were shining. A soft gasp moved through the crowd. Adaeze grabbed my arm tightly. Her fingers were cold. I swear, she whispered, I did not call him. I know, I said, but doubt entered my heart like slow poison. That night, the elders called a meeting. They spoke in low voices. They mentioned old stories. Stories of spirits that take the form of strangers. Stories of women who carry unseen shadows. When we returned home, Adaeze sat quietly. "Do you think they believe I am evil?" she asked. "They are only afraid," I replied. She looked at me carefully. "And you?" I wanted to answer quickly. I wanted to say no. But the image of the red moon and the silent dogs came back to me. Before I could speak, the cold wind from the forest blew again, stronger than before. Our door shook. And from far away, deep inside the trees, a voice whispered clearly into the night. "Adaeze." This time, I heard it too. The voice that called Adaeze's name did not sound like wind. It sounded like breath. Slow. Soft. Waiting. We both sat still inside our small mud house. The oil lamp flickered as if it too was afraid. The door shook again, but there was no hand pushing it. "Adaeze," the voice whispered from the direction of the forest. My heart beat so loudly I could hear it in my ears. She grabbed my arm. "You heard it," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," I answered. For the first time since I brought her home, I felt something I could not control. Fear. Outside, the dogs began to howl. Not barking. Not growling. Howling like they were mourning someone not yet dead. I stood up slowly. "Stay here," I told her. "No," she cried. "Don't leave me alone." I paused. She was trembling. I picked up my father's old machete and opened the door carefully. The night air was cold. The moon was half hidden behind thin clouds. The village was quiet, but I could sense that people were awake, listening from their rooms. The forest stood in the distance like a wall of darkness. Nothing moved. Then I saw it. Near the path leading to the stream, a shape. It looked like a woman standing still. My breath caught in my throat. "Adaeze," I whispered. But she was behind me. The shape did not move. It only stood there, half hidden by the shadow of a palm tree. I stepped forward slowly. The shape faded. Like smoke. Gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at empty space. When I went back inside, Adaeze looked at my face and knew I had seen something. "What was it?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. The next morning, the entire village was restless. Word had spread that the voice had been heard again. Some said they heard laughter near the forest. Others said they saw a light moving between the trees at midnight. The elders gathered under the Iroko tree once more. Papa Nedi spoke with a heavy voice. "This is no longer a small matter," he said. "The forest spirit has woken up." Adaeze stood beside me. I could feel the weight of eyes on her. "We must consult the Dibia," one elder said. Everyone agreed. The Dibia lived at the far end of the village, near the old termite hill. His hut was small, but people believed he saw things that others could not see. His name was Dibia Okoye. We went to him before sunset. He was sitting on a low stool, grinding herbs with a stone. He did not look up when we arrived. "I know why you have come," he said calmly. I felt a chill. He finally lifted his eyes and looked directly at Adaeze. "You carry two shadows," he said. She stepped back. "What does that mean?" He motioned for us to sit. "In this land," he began slowly, "there are spirits older than our fathers. Some are kind. Some are jealous. Many years ago, one such spirit fell in love with a hunter from this village. The air felt heavy. The spirit took the form of a beautiful woman and came to live among us. But the hunter did not know who she truly was. When he discovered the truth, he rejected her." The Dibia's voice became softer. The spirit became angry. She swore that she would one day return and take what the village loved most. Adaeze shook her head. "But what has that to do with me?" The Dibia looked at her carefully. "Spirits do not die," he said. "They wait. Silence filled the hut. He continued, when you entered this village, the wind carried your scent. The spirit recognized something in you. What something? I asked. He did not answer immediately. Your face, he said finally. You look like her. Adaeze stared at him as if he had slapped her. That is impossible, she whispered. I am human. Yes, he agreed. But spirits can mirror the living. Sometimes they choose a face that reminds them of their old pain. I felt my mind spinning. So what is happening? I asked. The spirit walks at night using her face, he said, pointing gently toward Adaeze. She calls children. She wants the village to fear her again. Adaeze's eyes filled with tears. So they will blame me? Yes. My chest burned with anger. How do we stop it? The dibia stood up slowly and walked to a clay pot in the corner. He took out a small calabash filled with clear water. This water is from the deepest part of the stream, he said. Tonight, when the moon rises high, your wife must go to the stream. Adaeze gasped. Alone? No, he said, looking at me. He will go with you. But she must look into the water. And then? I asked. If the spirit has chosen her face, it will show itself in the water. Not as reflection, but as truth. My mouth felt dry. And if it appears? Adaeze asked quietly. The dibia's face became serious. Then we will know whether it only borrows her face or if it is tied to her soul. We returned home before darkness fell. That night, the village was silent again. Even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. When the moon climbed high into the sky, we walked toward the stream. The path felt longer than usual. The trees leaned over us like watching giants. When we reached the stream, the water was still, clear, shining under the moonlight like silver glass. Do it quickly, I whispered. Adaeze knelt down slowly. Her hands were shaking. She leaned over the water. At first, I saw only her normal reflection. Her face. Her eyes. Her fear. Then the water rippled slightly. Her reflection did not move with her. My blood turned cold. The face in the water began to smile. But Adaeze was not smiling. The reflection's eyes began to glow faintly, like fireflies trapped inside them. Adaeze screamed and fell backward. The water suddenly splashed upward without anything touching it. And from the surface of the stream, another face rose. It was her face. But older. Angrier. Its lips moved without sound. Then, in a voice that sounded like many whispers together, it spoke. You brought me back. The forest behind us began to roar like a coming storm. And I knew that the spirit had not only woken up. It had been waiting for her. The face in the water did not disappear. It rose higher, no longer flat like a reflection. It was like a second Adaeze made of mist and moonlight. Its eyes burned softly, not like fire, but like old anger that had waited too long. You brought me back, the spirit said again. The stream began to bubble though no stone had been thrown into it. The trees shook though there was no wind. I pulled Adaeze behind me and held my machete tightly, but my hands were trembling. What do you want? I shouted. The spirit turned its glowing eyes toward me. You, it said. Your blood. Your village. Adaeze slowly stood up beside me. Though her body shook, her voice was steady. Why do you use my face? She asked. The spirit's lips curved into a sad smile. Because once I had this face. The forest suddenly became quiet, as if even the insects wanted to listen. I loved the man from this land, the spirit continued. He promised to marry me. I left my word for him. I worked as a woman. I cooked. I laughed. I dreamed. Her voice became sharp. But when he learned I was not born of flesh like him, he called me evil. He gathered the elders. They chased me into the forest. They broke their promise. The water around her darkened. I swore I would return when this village loved again. When a bride would come from far away. When joy would enter their homes. My heart tightened. You want revenge? I said quietly. Yes. She turned to Adaeze. You walk into my land with his blood in your husband's veins. Do you think spirits forget? I felt cold all over. Obinna, Adaeze whispered, what is she saying? My grandmother once told me our ancestor, a great hunter, had married a mysterious woman long ago. The story ended badly, but it was always told like a warning to children. I had never believed it was real. Now I was not sure. You cannot punish her for what happened before she was born, I said loudly. The spirit's eyes flashed. I cannot touch the dead. But I can touch what they love. The trees behind us began to bend unnaturally. The stream water rose higher. Adaeze stepped forward before I could stop her. If you were betrayed, she said bravely, then I am sorry for your pain. But I did not betray you. The spirit stared at her silently. You wear my face, the spirit said softly. You carry my reflection. When you entered this land, I felt it. The bond reopened. What bond? Adaeze asked. The spirit lifted her hand, and the water showed images like a moving mirror. I saw a young hunter. He looked like me. Same eyes. Same strong jaw. Beside him stood a woman with Adaeze's face. They were laughing together. Then I saw elders shouting. I saw fear in the hunter's eyes. I saw the woman being pushed away toward the forest. Her smile turned into tears. The image disappeared. The bond of promise, the spirit said. His bloodline carries the death. I dropped the machete. It felt useless. What must we do? I asked quietly. The spirit's voice became low like distant thunder. A promise was broken. A bride was rejected. So a bride must choose. Adaeze looked confused. Choose what? The spirit's glowing form moved closer to the surface of the stream. You can return with me into the forest. Take my place. Let your husband live. The village will be safe. My heart stopped. No. I shouted immediately. Adaeze's face went pale. Or, the spirit continued, you can refuse. And I will take the first child born from your womb. Just as they took my future from me. The forest began to howl again. My knees felt weak. You cannot ask this, I said desperately. This is evil. The spirit's eyes softened for a brief second. Was it not evil when they cast me out? She asked. Adaeze's breathing became heavy. Why me? She whispered. Because you are strong, the spirit answered. Because you are loved. Because sacrifice only has meaning when it hurts. Tears rolled down Adaeze's cheeks. I held her shoulders. Listen to me, I said urgently. We will not give you. We will find another way. She looked at me deeply. If I go, she said slowly, you will leave. The village will leave. And I will be empty, I replied. The spirit waited patiently, as if she had all the time in the world. Suddenly, I remembered something the Dibia once said when I was young, spirits are bound by words as much as humans. I stepped forward boldly. You said a promise was broken, I told the spirit. Then let a new promise be made. The spirit's eyes narrowed. What promise? I swallowed my fear. My ancestor rejected you. I will not. Before the moon and the stream, I acknowledge your pain. I call you bride of this land. I honor the wrong done to you. The forest went silent. Adaeze stared at me in shock. The spirit's form flickered. You would accept me, she asked quietly. I accept that you were wrong, I said carefully. But the living cannot pay forever for the sins of the dead. Release us, and your name will no longer be forgotten. We will tell your story. We will pour libation in your honor during festivals. You will not be erased. The spirit looked uncertain for the first time. I do not want worship, she said softly. What do you want? Adaeze asked gently. The spirit's glow dimmed slightly. I wanted love. The simple words hung in the air like fragile glass. Adaeze slowly stepped closer to the water again. This time, her hands were steady. You were loved once, she said. But fear destroyed it. Do not let anger destroy what is left of you. The spirit's face changed. The anger softened. The pain became clearer. For years, the spirit whispered, I waited in darkness. Adaeze knelt down and placed her hand just above the water. I cannot take your place, she said softly. But I can carry your story. You will not be forgotten. A long silence followed. Then the glowing eyes began to dim. The mist foam started sinking slowly back into the stream. If I release you, the spirit asked one last time, will you remember? Yes, we both said together. The water became still. The coldness in the air lifted. The forest stopped roaring. Only the quiet sound of flowing water remained. We stood there, shaking but alive. The spirit was gone. But the night had changed us forever. And as we walked back toward the village, I knew that one more test remained. Because not all spirits leave without leaving something behind. When we returned from the stream, the village was waiting. Nobody slept that night. Men stood with torches. Women held their children close. Even Papa Nedi, who was older than most trees in Umuagu, stood upright without leaning on his staff. They looked at us carefully. Adaeze's wrapper was wet at the edge. My feet were covered in mud. But we were alive. Well? Papa Nedi asked quietly. I looked at Adaeze. She has gone back into the stream, my wife said softly. A murmur moved through the crowd. Gone, someone asked. For now, I added. But she will not trouble us again. The elders exchanged long looks. Papa Nedi stepped closer. His old eyes searched Adaeze's face. Did she ask for blood? He asked. Adaeze nodded slowly. A heavy silence fell. And you refused? He asked. She asked for remembrance, I said. And we gave her that instead. The old man closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something in his face had changed. Then the debt is settled, he said firmly. That night, for the first time since she arrived, the dogs did not howl. The wind did not whisper. The forest stood still like it was sleeping again. But the story did not end there. The next morning, the Dibia called for a cleansing. Not because Adaeze was evil, but because the village had forgotten something important. Under the Iroko tree, the elders gathered. A small clay pot of palm wine was placed on the ground. Colonnuts were broken. White chalk was drawn in circles on the earth. Papa Nedi spoke loudly so even the children would hear. Long ago, fear made our fathers cruel. They rejected what they did not understand. Today, we choose differently. He poured palm wine onto the soil. For the forgotten bride of the forest, he said. The people repeated the words. Adaeze stood beside me, quiet and humble. From that day, something shifted in Umuagu. The women who once whispered about her now sat with her in the evenings. They asked her about the city. They laughed at her stories about traffic and tall buildings. She taught them how to write their names in English. In return, they taught her how to weave baskets and cook bitter leaf soup properly. She no longer tied her wrapper like a stranger. She walked barefoot sometimes. And the earth accepted her. But the greatest change happened during the next New Yam festival. It was the first festival since our return. Drums filled the air. Masquerades danced in bright colors. Children ran around with painted faces. In the middle of the celebration, Papa Nedi called for silence. There is a new tradition, he announced. Everyone listened. Before we eat the new yam, we will pour libation for the bride of the forest so that love will never again be chased away by fear. The villagers nodded. Palm wine was poured. Her name, which had once been forgotten, was spoken again. And as the drums began to beat once more, a soft wind passed through the village. Not cold. Not frightening. Gentle. Adaeze looked at me and smiled. I think she heard, she said. I smiled back. I think she forgave. Months passed peacefully. The farms grew strong crops that year. No child wandered into the forest again. The stream remained calm and clear. Then one evening, as the sun was setting behind the palm trees, Adaeze called me into our hut. Her face was glowing in a way I had never seen before. Obinna, she said softly, placing my hand on her stomach. Understanding came to me slowly. Are you? She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. I felt my knees weaken, but this time not from fear. From joy. The news spread through the village like sweet music. But with the joy came a small quiet worry in my heart. The spirit had asked for the first child. Had she truly released us? That night, I dreamed. In my dream, I stood again by the stream. The moon was bright. The water was still. The spirit rose slowly from the surface. But her eyes were no longer burning. They were calm. She looked at me without anger. You kept your promise, she said. I will keep it always, I answered. She nodded. The child will be blessed, she said softly. Not taken. When I woke up, the morning sun was shining through the small window. I told Adaeze about the dream. She listened carefully and then smiled. Then our child will grow without fear, she said. And so it was. When our daughter was born, the entire village celebrated. We named her Noni, a woman is strength. During her naming ceremony, Papa Nedi lifted her gently. This child carries two stories, he declared. The story of the living and the story of the remembered. As if in agreement, a soft wind blew across the compound. The same gentle wind from the festival. No dogs howled. No trees shook. Only peace. Years later, when my daughter was old enough to ask about the forest, I told her the story. Not as a tale of fear, but as a lesson. I told her that love must never be rejected because it looks different. I told her that promises are powerful, even beyond death. And I told her about the night the moon was red and the dogs were silent, the night her city mother stepped into a village guarded by ancient spirits and chose courage instead of fear. My city wife never returned to Lagos. She became part of Umuagu like the Iroko tree and the red earth. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon is full and the stream shines like silver, we hear a soft whisper carried by the wind. Not a cry. Not a threat. Just a voice that sounds almost like gratitude. And we remember. Because in our village, stories do not die. They live in the wind. They end.